If you saw our previous video, as promised, I want to introduce you to a lady by the name of Ruth Holmes. Ruth is a handwriting expert who served as a jury consultant on the Jack Kevorkian case. And if you recall, Kevorkian was a prominent figure in the news before he passed away in 2011. He was a doctor of pathology and a staunch advocate for assisted suicide with those suffering from terminal illness. I found the interview very intriguing into this man, dubbed Dr. Death, as he wanted to demonstrate to the public the importance of personal autonomy as well as a compassion for those who could no longer cope with their condition. Why my interest, you ask? Because I found another side to Jack, one that was steeped in culture, music, poetry, and the arts. Watch this.
Can you tell me about your meeting Jack Kevorkian? How did that go?
Well, it started, actually you could say it was almost by accident. I was driving my car and I heard that the judge, Hooper, was not going to allow the use of questionnaires in choosing a jury for Dr. Kevorkian. And I said, come on, the more information you know, you can stand what you can understand. So I thought if I could convince Feiger that if we could just get the jury questionnaires that you fill out to serve on the jury, I could be able to help them in choosing a jury that would be fair to Jack. And I met Jack for the first time then. And then I have continued I went through 5 juries with Jack. And what I would do is to fill out a form that would indicate whether the person was left brain or light brain, whether they were sympathetic, whether they were kind, whether they were rigid, whether they wanted to play with the rules while they were rebellious. And then what I would do is to write up a profile. So I would have a picture of all of the jurors right there. And then so Jeffrey could just go in and look at what the person would say. So I would say, don't ask this person too many questions. This one is very sympathetic. This one is open-minded. Okay. So that's how my use of handwriting for profiling came. And then, of course, we had finally, in the end, we're in the background there, but Jack was acquitted on 4 of the 5 trials where we did a jury questionnaire, but I had filled out those questionnaires for about 300 people every time he went to trial.
And so our audience knows that Feiger was the attorney of record for Jack Kevorkian.
For 4 of the last ones, but most people do not know, Dan, that he wanted to be convicted. Figure that one out. He represented himself, he let Feiger go, and he wanted to be convicted because he wanted to get this issue of assistance in healthcare at the end of life to the Supreme Court. But while he was in jail, he hand-printed, this is Jack's hand printing, he hand-printed 9 letters to the Supreme Court. I still have the registry, when I took them to the mailbox. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court would not take on the issue of assisted suicide. But Jack would be very pleased right now because there are 11 states who now permit assistance in dying.
That letter that you had cited was to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, correct?
Yes, it was. What good eyesight you have. That was Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I had read through the letter regarding his appeal to her. She had responded?
No, she did not respond. The Supreme Court refused to take the issue, and so Jack, unfortunately, when he was sentenced to 10 to 25 years in prison, that was a long sentence. They refused to take the case because, of course, he went through a number of appeals to try and get out, number one. And then while he was in prison, he did do everything he could to get this to the Supreme Court, and they refused to take the case.
Either they go or I go.
What does that mean, they or I go?
If I'm acquitted, they go, because they know they'll never convict me. If I am convicted, I will starve to death in prison. So I will go. One of the 2 of us is going to go. And that's why I did this. The issue's got to be raised to the level where it is finally decided.
Formally, you were involved with cases prior to all of this with various
Thank you for asking, because as a handwriting examiner, I am able to work in the human resource departments to determine whether a person is suitable for employment. I never say who to hire. I say, well, if I looked at your handwriting, and we'll get to your handwriting in a minute, but I will say the qualities that this person can bring to this particular writing is speed, efficiency, and all of that. So I work in human resources. I am a forensic examiner as well, so I can determine whether or not a signature is signed. Forgeries, fraud, bomb thefts, murder. There's even something on forensic files about on a murder for hire case. So we look at the handwriting to determine who wrote it. But also I work where I'm doing personality and character profiles on handwriting. So I have a very big business.
I understand. Which brings me, Ruth, to the question of he did not want to get acquitted.
That's right.
He, in a sense, would be martyrdom with all of this, yes or no?
You could call it that, as somebody going to stand up, because Jack valued something more than anything. It was integrity. And he said, my best advice is for you is to keep your integrity and do not be afraid. And so he was not afraid to challenge a system that is wrong. I think I gave you a copy of a little book like this.
Yes.
And it has all of his favorite sentences. I mean, these are little tiny things, but he made them on great big boards, which he took to the Supreme Court. He said that if it's not listed in the Constitution, then you have the right. It's for that reason that he believed that a person had the right to choose end of life or make end of life decisions.
If you don't have liberty and self-determination, you got nothing. That's what this country's built on. And this is the ultimate self-determination, to determine when and how you're going to die when you're suffering.
You had told me that he had shown up at your home unexpectedly, I guess, in the middle of the night, and he was holding a bag of something. Can you explain that?
Okay. So when it became known that Mike Wallace was going to show on 60 Minutes a direct injection, the press went wild trying to find him. And they actually found him at the house that he was renting from Jeffrey Feiger in West Bloomfield. And I had been out speaking myself, and I got home, and when you get a knock on your door at 11 o'clock at night, and you look out and say, Jack, I don't do bodies, Jack. No bodies, thank you. So I left the door and I said, come in. Now, I knew Jack because I'd already done 4 trials with him. And my daughter was playing the flute with him when she was visiting from getting her master's degree on the East Coast. And he puts a bag down on my counter and I see, he's got a change of shorts and a toothbrush, because that was
that was all he had. That's all he had.
That's all he had. And I said, there's no bodies in the car. Nope. Okay. But if somebody is looking for you, he said, they're after me. The press is after me. I said, well, I will take my car out and we'll put your car in the garage, so there won't be any Jack Kevorkian here. That was a Thursday night. And then on Sunday was going to be the direct injection on 60 Minutes with Mike Wallace. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so I said, but you're welcome to stay the weekend here. We can watch 60 Minutes together. Well, it was adorable because he moved in with his toothbrush and a change of shorts, and he stayed for the next 5.5 months. He was clean, he was neat, he was honest. It's the press that did in Jack Kevorkian. But he said, just never be afraid. And I'm beginning to think, and as I said, I have a sample of his handwriting here too. He's just a brilliant person. Oh, here's Jack's writing.
And what does it tell you, Ruth?
Jack writes with what we call print script. Print script is a high form level of writing because the brain is working faster than the hand can keep up with it. So I love Jack's writing from the moment that I saw it. He is independent. He can be stubborn. He likes to be in control. And if Jack believed something, and forgive me, I think it's an Armenian characteristic. I've met a lot of brilliant, stubborn people. We won't mention the stubbornness of C and then the T of your best wishes, something you signed for me.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a little genetic or something like that. But there was absolutely no fear from Jack. My gosh, he actually fixed more things in my house than my husband did. We had broken lamps, he fixed them. And he would chop wood, he would peel potatoes. The only thing Jack did not like in our house was our cat. But he was one of the most brilliant men I have ever met. He is what I call an empowered, creative person.
Which drew me to finding out or wanting to find out more about this man, because, when there's this characterization of a dark side, I suppose you could say that, right? Where he wanted to relieve people of their anguish and turmoil with terminal illness, yet he displayed this interest in the arts, be it poetry, be it music, be it his paintings, whatever it was. That how do you join those two things together, of assisting people to die versus this artistic nature? The two don't seem to go hand in hand, from my vantage point right now.
Okay. Everyone's entitled to their point of view, and Jack would listen, even though he might not agree.
Right.
But he never saw that as a dark side when he saw the relief of pain and suffering. And that was you usually choose a mantra, if you will, that you use in a trial. So he was not there to murder somebody. He was there to relieve pain and suffering. And until the last one that was with Thomas Yauch, everyone pulled their own machine. I mean, they just went to sleep, is what happened to them. So I would not say, they called him Dr. Death, but he was for a peaceful transition. And we all know that physicians will aid with something, people out of their pain and suffering. And that's why 11 states have now allowed physician assistance in dying. And a lot of people think it's grim, and they think that his paintings were grim. But he said, I took one course in painting in Royal Oak, and I learned how to paint, okay? And so if you said fever or something like that, I marked this here in the book. I said, why did you put such grim pictures here? All right, and so pull that off. I said, Jack, that's so terrible. I said, why do you have half the men in cement and one in flesh? He said, my patient told me it was like having half your body in flesh, okay? And then I said, why do you have the iris in his eye? And he said, where do you think the iris is? If anything, Jack was just ahead of his time in terms of doing that. And so if you see fever or any of those other paintings, and I don't know whether you'll put some in there, it was the people his patients who said it's like being on fire, or, you just feel like you're slipping away or something like that. So everybody said, oh, how grim and awful it is. But while he was here for that 5.5 months, if I can show this picture, he was playing music every day. If you understand what the notes are, and I think I told you that the notes on that page spelled out Bach. It was a B-A-C, and an H, which is a German form of music. Well, so his whole life changed.
And he was a fan of Johann Sebastian Bach.
He said he thought he was the greatest person in the world. Bach is the only music he enjoys listening to. And so we would hear him on the keyboard. He had a keyboard, he had his flute, he had a lot of instruments here. And we just hear this little sound upstairs and he'd be playing. Unfortunately, Jack got a very bad rap. And
would you say, Ruth, that was due more to media exploitation?
Totally. Absolutely. He turned down more people than he ever assisted. But when it reached the point where you had total consent and the people were pulling their own device. I mean, it was only on the last one that he did the direction injection because he wanted to push the issue a little bit farther, and maybe that would get it to the Supreme Court. And I think I told you about You Don't Know Jack. Have you seen the film?
Yes. With Al Pacino. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Al Pacino became Jack. That was absolutely amazing that he portrayed it so beautifully. In terms of him portraying Jack. I mean, even Jack riding the bicycle, he was quote, Armenian normal, if there's ever such a thing, is with all of that brilliance and talent that he would do his art. He was writing, I think in the book that we referred to, terse verses. I have to my right, there's a fireplace, and Jack would sit at night and he would take sesame seeds. He'd break his own sesame seeds. I don't know why I didn't bring the
Armenians are famous for that.
Really?
We like pumpkins.
I thought it was a dentist that break their teeth. Tell me more.
Yeah, well, we like to do that. I don't know if it's a nervous condition or what, but something that relaxing thing to do, I guess. Maybe, I don't know,
Good grief.
Yeah, I know.
When we look at your writing, we're looking at somebody who I describe as mentally gymnastic, which means that you can multitask. You can learn, you can listen, you can ignore, and then you can forget all of this.
We'll have to talk to my wife about that one, but go ahead.
Oh, okay.